The royal children are not real. Yes, that's exactly the headline that detonated across the kingdom at 6:14 a.m. on a calm Tuesday morning. The kind of morning when your biggest worry should be whether you made your coffee too weak, not whether the monarchy is collapsing under the weight of a scandal involving phantom heirs. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Within minutes, every news channel, gossip account, and whispering neighbor transformed into a full-time investigative journalist. TikTok practically burst into flames. Twitter, X, had to rate limit itself. Even your grandmother's church WhatsApp group was dropping theories like seasoned political analysts. But the real explosion came from behind palace walls. Because at the center of this story are Prince Alastair and Princess Leora, the beloved young children of Prince Henry, the fiery, unpredictable, emotionally raw second-born son of the monarch. King Charles, the aging sovereign trying desperately to modernize a monarchy that keeps tripping over its own polished shoes. And a revelation so absurd, so surreal, so impossible to ignore that the palace had no choice but to act. And by act, I mean strip Prince Henry's children of all titles, privileges, rights, protections, and royal status. Just like that. Gone. Erased from the royal ledger with the stroke of a pen. But was this really about the children? Or was it about the secret war between Henry and the king? A battle brewing for years, one fueled by resentment, control, legacy, and the one thing every royal fears. Exposure. Grab a tea, or a snack, or something stronger. Because what happened next turned the monarchy upside down, and the truth behind why King Charles took such a drastic step is even more shocking than the headlines. The leak that broke the internet. It started with a mysterious document, a report that appeared anonymously in a digital news Dropbox known for receiving whistleblower tips. The file was labeled only. Not real. Seriously, that was the entire title. Inside, a series of blurred images, incomplete medical records, unidentified signatures, fragmented timestamps, and a cryptic message. The heirs do not exist. Ask who benefits. Immediately, conspiracy theorists celebrated like it was Christmas morning. Royal skeptics went wild, and the palace press office experienced a collective heart attack. But the real problem wasn't the file itself. No, the real problem was that someone inside the palace had leaked internal correspondence. Private notes between senior courtiers, all referencing concerns about the children, their documentation, and irregularities. Even worse, some messages appeared to be from Charles himself, asking, "Why is the verification incomplete? Why is there no official chain of custody? Who approved this?" It looked bad, very bad. Before the palace could even formulate a denial, the wildfire had already crossed borders, oceans, and time zones. And then, Henry saw it. Henry's reaction, nuclear. If emotional explosiveness were an Olympic sport, Henry would have taken home the gold while simultaneously accusing the judges of treason. The moment he glimpsed the headline, "The children are not real," his temper erupted. According to palace insiders in this fictional universe, he smashed a crystal vase. He shouted loud enough for footmen to flinch. He demanded an emergency meeting with the king. And in a moment of raw, unfiltered fury, he declared, "If my children aren't real, then this monarchy isn't real." It was dramatic. It was messy. It was Henry. But amid all the emotion, he missed one critical detail. This leak wasn't just speculation. It wasn't just gossip. It wasn't even an attack on him. It was a symptom of something much deeper. A secret the palace had been hiding for years. Because when Henry finally confronted Charles, the king revealed something that would change everything. The king's confession, "I had no choice." Imagine it. Henry storms into the king's private study, the heavy oak doors flying open like an actor entering a dramatic courtroom scene. Charles, calm, slow-breathing, sipping tea from a delicate porcelain cup, doesn't flinch. He simply sets the cup down, looks at his son, and says the one sentence Henry never expected. "I know who leaked the report." Silence. Palace-thick silence. The kind that feels heavy, historical, heavy enough to topple institutions. Henry, still seething, demands to know. "Then why aren't you stopping the story? Why aren't you defending my children? Why are you letting the world believe they're not real?" Charles pauses. Then, because some of it is true. Boom. Not the fireworks kind. Not the celebratory kind. The kind that rips through a dynasty. Henry's face goes ash-white. The king gestures for him to sit. And then, as if recounting a classified briefing, Charles begins to unravel the truth behind the scandal. The real issue, a royal law older than electricity. In this fictional monarchy, a bizarre but long-standing constitutional rule exists. One passed centuries ago by a paranoid king afraid of foreign entanglements. The law requires every direct heir must be presented to the sovereign within 72 hours of birth. Every heir must undergo lineage confirmation by 3 royal witnesses. The process must be recorded and archived in the royal ledger. Failure to follow the protocol? The child is considered unconfirmed, outside the line of succession, ineligible for royal titles, legally non-existent within the monarchy's framework. Basically, if the family doesn't see the baby, the monarchy pretends the baby doesn't exist. Henry and his wife, eager for privacy, had rejected all palace involvement. They wanted anonymity, normalcy, freedom, admirable in theory, a constitutional nightmare in practice. Because without the protocol, Prince Alastair and Princess Leora were, in the eyes of the monarchy, literally not real. Not legally, not royally, not constitutionally. Henry never knew. And this is where Charles drops the final anvil. I warned your advisors. They chose not to tell you. Henry feels the room tilt. His advisors, not him. They had withheld the information. And now, the monarchy was paying the price. Because Charles had already drafted a royal decree that would ignite World War III inside the palace. The royal decree that shocked the nation. While Henry was pacing halls, dodging reporters, and breathing fire like an emotionally wounded dragon, Charles was preparing something far worse. A constitutional enforcement order. A formal statement. Signed, sealed, stamped with the royal crest. It read, "As sovereign, I hereby declare that Prince Alastair and Princess Leora, lacking constitutional verification, shall be removed from the royal register and stripped of all titles, privileges, and protections effective immediately." You could hear the collective gasp from one end of the kingdom to the other. Even the palace's ancient portraits seemed to widen their painted eyes. But Charles wasn't finished. Beneath the decree was a second, more devastating clause. Until proper verification is completed, the children shall not be recognized as members of the royal family. Translated, the kids were royal ghosted, erased, removed from the website, their coats of arms, deleted, their ceremonial birthdays, suspended, their tiny monogrammed palace nursery plates, packed away. The monarchy pressed Control plus Alt plus Delete on 2 toddlers. Henry's reaction, meltdown mode activated. If you thought Henry was furious before, now he was volcanic. He stormed back into the king's study and hurled the decree across the table. "You stripped my children of their identities." Charles, ever the chilly monarch, responded, "No, you stripped them the moment you hid them from the institution." Ouch. It was the emotional equivalent of a royal slap. But here's the twist nobody expected. The king wasn't the one who leaked the report. And the real culprit had motives far darker than anyone realized. The whistleblower who wanted the monarchy to fall. When the palace launched its internal investigation, one thing became clear. This wasn't the work of a journalist. It wasn't an activist. It wasn't a foreign power. It was someone inside the royal household, someone with access, motive, resentment, and a front-row seat to Henry's inner circle. A palace employee who'd felt overlooked, underpaid, and underestimated for years. A person who had watched Henry break rules, challenge protocol, and treat the monarchy like an optional subscription service he forgot to renew. That employee? Henry's former communication strategist, a political mastermind named Adrian Locke. Adrian wasn't just brilliant. He was loyal. Until Henry fired him in a fit of rage after a minor press mishap involving an off-script interview. Henry thought the incident was over. He had no idea Adrian had kept copies of everything. Every memo. Every document. Every email. Every warning about protocol irregularities. He sat on the information like a dormant volcano. Waiting. Watching. Choosing the perfect moment to ignite the monarchy's greatest scandal in a century. But why? What did Adrian really want? And why target the children? The true motive: revenge, reform, or something much bigger? When authorities tracked Adrian down, expecting some grand manifesto or revolutionary message, they found something much stranger. A simple document titled, "The Future Monarchy Project." Inside, Adrian laid out a bold, shockingly well-crafted argument. The monarchy was outdated. The rules were archaic. The secrecy was corrosive. And the only way to force reform was through catastrophe. In Adrian's view, exposing the children's unverified status wasn't an attack. It was a catalyst, a way to pressure constitutional reform, modernization, transparency, and accountability. He explained, "I didn't want to destroy the monarchy. I wanted to save it from itself." In a twisted way, he believed he was the hero. The public response: pandemonium. Some citizens called Adrian a traitor. Others called him a visionary. Hashtags erupted on both sides. Hashtag protect the children. Hashtag modernize the crown. Hashtag abolish the royal rules. Hashtag Adrian was right. Hashtag Adrian is a monster. The kingdom had never been more divided. And at the center of the storm? Two small children who had no idea their entire identities were being debated on primetime news. But what about Henry? What would he do next? Compromise? Negotiate? Fight back? The answer shocked everyone. Henry's counterattack. "Then I'll burn the whole thing down." Henry refused to accept the decree, refused to accept the rules, refused to allow his children to become casualties of royal bureaucracy. He called an emergency press conference, unannounced, unapproved, and unscripted. Standing before the cameras, he spoke with raw fury. "My children will not be erased. If this institution cannot accept them, then this institution does not deserve to exist." Gasps, cries, breaking news alerts. And then, the line that sent shockwaves through the kingdom: "If the king strips them, I strip myself." Meaning, Henry threatened to renounce his own status, his own place, his own royal existence. It was the ultimate act of rebellion, a prince declaring independence. The internet had a collective meltdown. But Charles? He didn't flinch, because the king had already anticipated Henry's move and had a counterplan ready. This is where things turned dramatically political. The king's final decision, a test of loyalty. Instead of punishing Henry for the threat, Charles surprised everyone. He issued a challenge. A simple one, a fair one, a constitutional one. He told Henry, "If you want your children recognized, then follow the protocol. Bring the children. Present them before the crown. Let the royal witnesses sign the confirmation." Henry balked. He hated the idea, hated the scrutiny, hated the symbolism, hated everything about the institution that had tried to erase his family. But he faced a brutal truth. This was the only way to restore Alastair and Leora's royal identities. So Henry had a choice: hold on to pride, or fight for his children's future. His final decision created the most powerful moment in the entire saga. The ceremony that changed everything. 1 week later, the palace courtyard filled with spectators, journalists, curious onlookers, and royal loyalists. For the first time ever, the confirmation ceremony was made public. Henry arrived holding Alastair's hand, his wife carrying baby Leora. The family looked tense, proud, fractured, united, vulnerable. Charles waited on the throne platform, expression unreadable. The crowd fell silent. The children approached the sovereign. And in that moment, that small, fragile, historical moment, Henry whispered to his father, "Don't fail them." Charles placed a hand over his grandson's and said, "Today, we restore what pride almost destroyed." The witnesses signed the ledger. The seals were stamped. The ceremony ended. And just like that, Prince Alastair and Princess Leora were real. Not just to the law, not just to the monarchy, but to the kingdom. 9. Aftermath, a monarchy forever changed. The fallout was enormous. Constitutional reform began. The secrecy laws were rewritten. Verification protocols were modernized. And the monarchy emerged stronger, more transparent, and more human. But perhaps the biggest transformation occurred within the royal family itself. Henry and Charles, once adversaries, finally began rebuilding their relationship. Not as prince and king, but as father and son. Strip away the crowns, the carriages, the palaces, the pageantry, and what remains? A family. A deeply flawed, deeply emotional, wildly complicated fictional family navigating the same themes we all do. Pride, fear, identity, legacy, misunderstanding, forgiveness, and most importantly, the desire to protect the people we love. This alternate universe thriller isn't really about titles. It's about what happens when systems refuse to evolve and when people refuse to bend. It's about the cost of secrecy, the danger of assumptions, and the power of coming together even after chaos.